Hello, everybody, and welcome to Oakville Matters in its new Skype format. Today, we're going to run through the questions that we're hearing from residents with Councillors Pavan Parmar from Ward 7, that's the north part of Oakville, and Councillor Beth Robertson from the southwest part of Oakville, that's also sometimes known as Bronte. And Pav and Beth, thank you very much for joining today. I'll just arbitrarily use the alphabet to pick Beth first. Beth, what's the most common question that you're getting from residents?
My most common question has been about dogs. Several residents have either called or emailed to say that they're worried about how many dogs off leash they've seen, how they feel scared if they're walking down trails and a dog approaches them, even though the owner has stayed 2 meters away, the dog is coming right up to them off their leash. And so residents are really concerned about that.
Right. And I've heard that a lot too, and from other council members as well. And that's why on Monday I amended the distancing bylaw. I'm going to call it the Keep Your Distance bylaw to include the requirement to keep dogs 2 meters away from other people and from other dogs. I'm aware that a lot of authorities are saying that the dog can't give, that dogs haven't been known to give people coronavirus. The issue is the tracking of the fomites. The virus apparently can live in particles on surfaces for a very long time, and you can find references to that all over the internet, which is what we're substituting for the encyclopedia nowadays. And so for that reason, people feel rightly that they shouldn't have to be brushed by a dog any more than they should be approached too closely by a person. And that's why we added the requirement to keep dogs also 2 meters away from other people and from other dogs. Pav, what's the most common question that you're getting?
Hi there. Thanks for having me today. One of the most common questions that I'm receiving right now is, should I be wearing a mask in public? So I think there's been a lot of conversation about that. And most recently, an update from Canada's Chief Medical Officer.
Yes. Well, thank you for that question. To be clear, the Canada's Chief Medical Officer has adjusted her advice to say that people might want to do that, might want to wear a face covering in public on the basis that there's emerging evidence that people who don't think they're ill, but it's possible to have the coronavirus and to be infectious, that is, to be transferring the virus without knowing that you have it, because apparently there's such a thing as having the virus active before you get symptoms. And as a result, it seems a good precaution. This is something that it's been very notable that in Taiwan, they have that as part of their pandemic response from the get-go ever since SARS. And so I don't see anything wrong with it. And I, in fact, got my wife and myself a face covering. I mean, it's not any kind of surgical mask or anything like that, but a friend made a few and showed them and offered us to. I'll just reach out a picture and show you what our friend made. I am not with the sewing arts, so she told me. When she told me that this was easy to make, I believed her.
That. Yeah.
I believed her, but it's not something, having looked at it, that I believe I have the skills to do. But look at that, three
nice, yeah,
fabrics. I quite like this sort of wheat-themed one, and it would look like this.
I think also it's important to note that you mentioned it's a non-medical mask, and those are really being reserved for our medical staff, and also that residents should should note that you still must practice social distancing while wearing a mask. Wearing a mask is not doesn't mean to relax any of the social distancing measures. Everything should remain in place. You should still follow the 2-meter rule. And wear the masks where necessary, where it's difficult to keep social distancing. So places like the grocery store or public transit, where it's not as easy to steer away and keep social distances. So I think that's also important to take into consideration.
Yes, and that's a very good point. Our keep your distance bylaw applies whether you're wearing a face covering or not. And just to clarify, grocery stores and buses, for example, are required to keep people 2 meters apart. My grocery store only lets in enough people at a time to maintain that distance, and they've got the distances marked out on the floors all over the store. The very first day that it was happening, I went, we also had the aisles are one way, and I accidentally turned up an aisle the wrong way, and a gentleman halfway down said, "Hey, bud, wrong way." And turned around and went the right way for the rest of the store. So, Beth, what's your next most common question?
I think a lot of my concerns come because we're in Bronte along the lake, and people are concerned about the number of people that are coming down, especially on the nice weekend days, to go for walks along the lake. And they realize that they're walking with their little family unit, but there are so many family units down there that they can't see how it's safe. They may be following the equipment rules and not using the equipment, but they feel that the parks are actually overcrowded right now with people walking.
Yeah, Pav, are you getting similar complaints about any of your green areas?
Yeah, I am actually. The parks, I feel like now have significantly reduced the amount of people that are there, but the trails are starting to get a little bit crowded. So just been reminding residents, it's fine if you need to go for that mental break and take that walk or take your child on a bike ride or take your dog for a walk, as long as you continue to practice the social distancing measures that have been put in place and recommended by our public health officials.
Well, I can tell you that the Premier was very clear that people ought to do their walking near their home, and they ought to restrict it to a reasonable amount, and that the crowding and keep your distance rule is still active, and if necessary, we can look to including more requirements into our keep your distance bylaw if this doesn't improve by itself. The province has been very clear in the powers that they've handed out to municipalities and the police around these things, that they want us to use a graduated approach of encouragement and education before the kind of enforcement that comes with fines and tickets. So we are proceeding in a graduated way, and I sympathize with the people reporting the crowds. One woman wrote to me complaining that she lives down by one of your parks, Beth, and she felt that the crowds were so numerous that it was denying her a safe space to go out and walk in her neighborhood, as per the Premier's suggestion. So yeah, this is a toughie, and we're watching it, and we may very well have to get stricter. And like the Premier said yesterday, I hate getting strict. I can't believe that it's necessary when people understand the threat and the danger that we're living through. But that was a good one to explain to people. Beth, thanks for that. Pav, what's your next most common question?
I am hearing a lot being here in North Oakville about construction workers, and people are a little bit concerned because they are still saying construction workers that aren't maintaining the 2-meter distance. So I think a big question on everyone's mind is what is happening with the construction projects.
Well, that's a good opportunity to explain that And Beth, I know I have got several complaints from your area in that same mode, and so I know this is widespread, and from other councillors as well. So I know this is very widespread, um, and it's heartwarming in a way that people think that the mayor and the council are the final authority on everything, and it's great that they might even like us to be, but we're the bottom of four layers of government, and these rules are made by these particular rules on construction are made by the province, and the province has set up a special web link and a special hotline number for people to report uh, uh, unsafe conditions at construction sites, and they've hired extra inspectors, and they are sending them out and requiring improvements where it's possible and shutting them down where they can't or won't. All editing being what it is, perhaps it's going to pop up right there, right now, and we'll see. Uh, what's your either one of you? What's your next most popular question?
So I've had questions about property tax as well. And for those residents who have their property tax combined with their mortgage payments, there's been a question of whether their property tax would automatically be deferred if they defer their mortgage, and what really the process is. And I believe the answer to that is that you do need to contact your financial institution and seek advice from them and clarification. I think every bank has it set up separately, but do not assume that your property tax payment will be deferred with your mortgage if that's a route that you have chosen to take. Do ensure that you take the time to speak to them and find out all the options that you have available to you.
That's absolutely correct, and it's a very good point. We made the relief automatic for everyone that we could, but we don't have the authority to get between you and your bank or your mortgage company. Beth, what about you?
I did want to go back to your other question about reporting unsafe employers. The Ministry of Labor number for that is 1-877-202-0008. And that's for anyone that is an employee, whether you're in a school, in a grocery store, a construction site. If you feel unsafe, that you could call and speak to them about that. To get back to what Pav said, I think that one of the things that is happening in terms of tax deferrals is probably, will it last longer than June? As people are getting to the June deadline, still have no money and don't know what to do about paying their taxes by the end of June.
Well, the good news is it's only the start of April. We're not at the end of June. Council is going to meet again on tomorrow, and we'll receive more information from financial staff about our own situation. Everyone is losing revenue, not just residents, but also the municipalities. And we have to keep an eye on our ability to maintain all of the essential services like police and fire and bylaw and garbage and water and all the things that we need, and schools, because schools are now back, albeit electronically. So it's a tough row to hoe, and the way I see it personally, the Canadian government is the top layer, and that is the layer that has the fiscal strength and tools to give relief all down the line to not only the provinces and not only the regional governments, but also the local governments and the local residents. And I know from the statements that the Prime Minister and the Premier have made that they fully intend to do that. So it's important to look for relief from the right level. And the municipality is certainly in no position to sort of stack relief on top of relief. So with that said, some municipalities I know have already extended their waivers out 90 days. And I know that we'll be looking to do as much as we can But I've tried to set the table to put the context in which everything we do has to be considered. Do you want to add anything to that, councillors?
I
No,
think
covered it. Yeah.
it's a difficult decision right now because you're right. We do have essential facilities and things that we have to keep up, and we can't afford to do that. People don't realize that municipalities don't get to run a debt. And because we don't, we still have to cover the things that we have going in terms of fire and police and water.
And
Yes,
I think it's good that we are offering the assurance to residents that we are closely monitoring the situation. And like you said, everything is changing very rapidly. So as council meets and the situation develops, there could be changes made.
that's right. And for everybody's greater comfort, perhaps, the mayors, we all talk to each other constantly. We have an organization. We meet by telephone, and we met with the Minister of Finance and the Minister of Municipal Affairs, and we registered with them our concern that they don't allow us to run a deficit or to fund our operations with debt, and that we therefore wanted to make sure that they understood that they're responsible for keeping us going, because they depend on the municipal level to do a lot of the enforcement and the services that they want you to have. And they both acknowledged that that's their duty and their responsibility, and they both assured us that more help is coming. And so I would urge people not to panic about your particular issue. I think you have to widen your perspective and remember that there's 4 layers of government here, and the top layer is the one above all else, as along with the province, with the resources and the duty to look after all of us. So, Pav, have you got another popular question that you're getting?
Yeah, I think something that you actually alluded to in your previous response on essential services. So there has been questions around waste management and if waste management services will continue. And I have let residents know that the curbside blue box, green cart, and garbage collection will continue, but the bulk waste collection is suspended until further notice, along with the loose leaf collection. Yard waste collection, however, is going to be continued as scheduled, and that will start this month in April. And just a note to residents on litter in general. I mean, when we have the windy days and the blue box items are flying everywhere on the street and on your lawn, I mean, in the middle of a pandemic is not the time to have litter on our streets and on our driveways or our sidewalks. So I encourage everybody to pick this up as soon as possible. Obviously, wear the gloves. Make sure you're keeping your hands sanitary. Don't touch your face when you're picking up litter. Wash up after the fact. But I know that some residents have reached out to me. They've been going for walks in their neighborhood, staying close to their home, and they do take a bag with them and they take a pair of gloves and they pick up litter along the way. So thank you to everybody who is doing their part. And helping with that. It is certainly important for us to keep our communities clean, especially at a time like this.
Yes, I can't urge strongly enough. Please, please, please take caution with your blue box. Put weights on top of it. Make sure that it's not going to become a casualty to wind on windy days. Do your part. Think about your neighbors. And I'll just tell you that one gentleman in Oakville was so distressed by litter in his area that he went out. He's been laid off. He had the time. He picked up 20 bags of litter and garbage after the last wind storm. And I was so impressed. I thanked him so much. And I arranged to have a truck come and cart it off for him to the dump, which is where you take, where we're supposed to take waste in between garbage pickups. And but I can't say enough about the civic mindedness of that gentleman. In response to a point a minute ago, I should also mention that the town and the region are minimizing our expenses as much as we can. Last week, we laid off 800 people, which is a very difficult decision to make. Um, we recognize that they have a little bit of a safety net in the Canada Emergency Response Benefit and in EI, and we believe that they're being bridged appropriately, and we're continuing to evaluate everything we do for necessity and efficiency. Beth, what's your next most common question that you're hearing?
I think it will tag on to Pavan's. One thing with us in Ward 1 and 2 and 3 and 6, some in 5, there is no loose leaf pickup this spring. And I've seen people they're starting to rake out their gardens and rake them down toward the curb. So just a reminder that we have to put everything in brown bags out now, and it goes out on the same as garbage days. And that might mitigate lots of people raking out and then having to double up on their work. I think that people want to know what happens in schools in terms of reporting when they see people playing with school equipment and congregating on school grounds.
Right. Before I turn to schools, I just want to mention, I want to put a shout out for my neighbor who has the best garden in my neighborhood. This is what she does with her leaves. She rakes them into piles, and then she takes her mower and mulches them. And then she turns that into the compost that enriches her flower beds. And it's something to think about. Free fertilizer, people, you're throwing away free fertilizer. Yeah. So, if my neighbor lady can do that, I figure I can.
And if you've got the extra time on your hands, which you do.
Yes.
There is a little bit of time nowadays. So on the schoolyards, the town has a contractual arrangement with the public school board, and we manage their recreational properties. We do not have the same arrangement with the other large school board. And so you will see inconsistency in terms of enforcement and behavior around school grounds. And I think most people know the difference between a public school and a Catholic district school. And with that knowledge that we don't have that arrangement with the Halton Catholic District School Board, you'll know to call your trustee to try to get results. I know that I've forwarded a couple of these comments to the appropriate trustees, and they've given good answers, I believe, and we may be, who knows, down the road able to work together a little better between the town and that particular school board. I know we've offered them help, and I haven't seen them accept our help yet. So that's the long and the short and the sad of it. I suppose the public school board is the good side of it. Pav, what about you? What's next on your most popular?
Just to quickly add to that, though, I think now would be a good time also for us to share the number to call to report violations of physical distancing. And so that number.
Can I please let me do this. The other day, someone was very shocked when I rhymed off the phone number to call. It's 905-825-4722. And the person said, how come you have that memorized? And I said, well, because I use it 5 times a day. So there you go, Pav. Thanks for letting me.
No problem. And just a reminder to residents, please do not use 911 to report the physical distancing violations. This number that the mayor has offered to us is a COVID-19 hotline, and it's specifically for reporting these types of instances. So please don't use 911 in any of those circumstances.
That's right. That's right. Let me say there's 3 phone numbers. The 905-825-4722 number is for, let's call it, that's the hotline for concerns about following the Keep Your Distance bylaw and safety and things like that. 311 is for if you think you have symptoms and you would like advice. And 911 is if you have severe symptoms and you need help. So there's a graduated set of responses there. And it's really helpful if citizens keep in mind what each number is for. The thing we're fighting in this emergency is we're trying to prevent the overloading of our system. We don't want to crash our hospital. We don't want to crash 911. We don't want to crash 311. And so far, we haven't crashed 825-4722 either. Pav, what's your next most popular question?
So I have had residents reach out to me about not feeling well, not symptoms that are just COVID-19 related, but just in general, foot ache or a backache. They want to go to the doctor. They're scared to go to the clinic, obviously, because they don't want to be in that type of area. So my advice to them so far has been to contact Telehealth. I did read something interesting in your newsletter, Mayor Burton. Maybe you want to share a little bit more about the virtual clinics as well.
Well, the province and the region have an ability for you to go on the web and screen yourself, and that's a kind of a virtual clinic. And this is as good a point as any to say if you are not signed up, thousands of people are for my nightly email update. But if you aren't yet, you can sign up just by sending an email, mayor@oakville.ca. That's the easiest email in the world. I have no trouble remembering that one. I hope you can find it easy to remember. mayor@oakville.ca, and we'll sign you up.
And I think it would be great if also on the screen we could put up an image of Telehealth's phone number for people that need to speak to a doctor but don't have access to a clinic right now. And also the mayor in his newsletter had provided a virtual MD site. So essentially you can go online, you can click the link and you can be connected with the doctor. It's covered by OHIP. So it's definitely something that you can use instead of going into a walk-in clinic. So I encourage everybody to use those resources as they become available.
Oh, thank you for that. I think I just got the signal that we ran out of time. So I want to thank you, Beth Robertson from the southwest part of Oakville, Ward 1. And I want to thank you, Councillor Pavan Parmar from the north, Ward 7. I hope this has been helpful for you who are watching us. And you know what? If this has proven helpful, you can send in questions and we'll do it again. You can send them to me at mayor@oakville.ca, or you can send them to Councillor Parmar. Her address is pavan.parmar@oakville.ca. And Councillor Robertson's address is beth.robertson@oakville.ca. And if you prefer to write to your own counselor, we're all working together as a team and we're all happy to hear from you. We will connect you to the help you need. If you can't get help anywhere else, remember to reach out to us. We are here for you. And thank you very much for joining us today on Oakville Matters.